Hi guys, this is Invoque, and today I have something very different planned for you. We are in a doctor's office, the specific doctor, a chiropractor, and I will introduce it to you now. Okay, guys, this is the lovely Desiree Griesel, or Dr. Desiree Griesel. I know her as Desiree just because she's a friend of mine, but we thought we'd do a cool video together because she's been treating me for not injuries necessarily, but just general treatment for my spine and also for my wrist and my, what is this, doctor?
Forearm.
Forearm. So, and a lot of those things I think has to do with the fact that I do use my body in my work. So there are implications as to what it can do to your body in the long term. So we'll go through a little bit of a process, talking about multiple things like gear setup, holding the camera, to sitting and editing at a desk. Okay. So initially we weren't going to discuss setup, and then the moment she saw me taking my stuff out of my car, she's like, "You are doing that completely wrong." And so while I was setting up, she took notes, and she basically made some notes as to what I'm doing wrong in terms of specifically my back. And she'll explain more in detail as to why I'm doing that wrong. So you go through your process. What did you notice?
Okay, so firstly, if we look at posture, obviously, so today I'm going to speak a lot about center of gravity, because as photographers, you're on your feet all the time, and the center of gravity is obviously from the top of your head straight through your body to your feet. So when it comes to picking up objects, holding a camera, sitting, editing, or whatever the case, you will always think where the center of gravity is pushing down into and what structures might be affected. So as soon as Liz, I helped her get some stuff out of her car, and as soon as she picked up that heavy box, I was like, no, you're going to hurt your back. So what you need to keep in mind is that if you bend over to pick objects up, move objects around, hold your camera, you always need to engage your core. So most of your posture is from core stability. So that's the first thing you do, is you activate your core. Then secondly, if you look at the function of your lower back, it's actually not to flex and extend. Yes, it does allow that movement, but it's not to lift or carry or pick up the objects with your back. That's the function of your glutes. So if you bend forward and you lift up objects, you need to bend your knees, activate your glutes, and basically push that weight from your glutes and then extend up. So not bend forward and do that. So that's just some of the few setup mistakes that I've seen Liz does. So it's just two things you need to look out for as a photographer, is activating your core and using your bums instead of using your back. What I can refer to is, if you look at how babies pick up objects, they always literally go down into a deep squat. It's because their heads are quite heavy. So if they bend forward, they're going to fall over. So keeping that in mind,
That is cute.
if you want to bend down and pick stuff up, you always need to go down into the deep squat. Even if you're just taking the lightest object like a pen or, I don't know, a cover of the camera, lens or whatever out of the bag, you need to bend down into a deep squat to obviously stabilize that center of gravity. Once again, referring to that. Okay, so if you bend down and you actually want to just remove the smallest object from your bag, even if it's just the cover of the camera lens, you bend down into the deep squat to actually cause that center of gravity to go down into the center and the most stable part of the base. Mm-hmm. And then you shouldn't bend forward with straight knees. So if you bend to pick up anything, doesn't matter what it is, it should never be done with straight knees. Always go down into a deep squat. Okay.
So now we will be talking about handling your camera. Now my main camera is my 5D Mark IV, and it's quite a heavy camera. This is a lighter camera, it's the 650D, but it will demonstrate the point. Okay. So
I want you to go into your normal position as you would go into taking a few shots.
Okay. So normally I stand, but when I stand, I go and I do this.
Okay, so firstly what we can look at is this posture is completely incorrect. I think the first thing photographers can look at is try to you can bring your head back. So try to bring the camera to your eye instead of bringing your eye to the camera. So if you want to get a closer shot, rather position your body to get your body closer to the object, to the model, or to whatever you're trying to shoot, instead of bringing your eye to the camera. So going to your normal posture.
if I'm just going to if I'm going to the object, I would rather do this.
So if you want to get closer to the object, rather step forward and lunge into your leg. So the center of gravity goes through your legs instead of going through your neck. Okay, so what's wrong about this position is the neck straightens out forward. Okay, your head is quite a heavy weight. We don't want that heavy weight to put strain on the front part of your neck. So what needs to happen is your shoulders needs to roll back and your head needs to go back into neutral, so that if you shoot, the center of gravity goes through your head, straight through the natural curve in your spine and down your spine into your feet, instead of putting all that pressure of your head and the camera on your neck. Okay, so Liz just mentioned she gets a pain almost like
when I'm trying to do it correctly.
Yeah, so if she repositions herself, she gets a pain around there. That could be due to subscapular weakness. What that means is the muscle that's supposed to stabilize your scapula against your thoracic cage is weak. So if you engage your core, which means you need to engage your pelvic floor from the bottom up, activate your whole core, which means your abdominal muscles and your lower back muscles. So if you activate that and you stabilize your scapula to actually stabilize your shoulders, instead of your shoulders doing that, which is a rounded shoulder posture, which is also quite bad, you need to activate everything, pull yourself up, then that stabilization should actually relieve that pain if your muscles are strong enough to support your correct posture.
Okay. I just want to show her how I normally sit at my desk, and that's literally how I sit and work when I edit. I literally reach forward, similar to how I reach forward with my camera when I zoom in on detail when I edit. So I needed to show you this, her seeing it, so that you can see a reaction of how incorrect that is.
Okay, let's speak about sitting at your desk and editing. One thing I have noticed, which is absolutely correct that she's doing, is her screen is quite high. I don't know if it's because the size of the screen is quite big.
It's because she advised me to lift it to eye level. Okay. That's why I said there's like books under the actual screen.
Okay, so I can literally compliment her on the screen positioning, and that's about it. Okay. So when you sit at a desk, obviously photographers spend a lot of time in front of the computer editing photos, which is absolutely understandable, but we need to make sure that if you sit at your desk that you're doing it in the correct position. So I've got a general 90-degree rule. It's obviously all 90-degree hooks, is it the word? Corners.
Yes, corners.
So all 90-degree corners, depending on whether it's parallel to the floor or vertical to the floor.
Yes.
So there.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just start at the top. So her screen needs to be lifted so that if you sit on your chair, that your eyes are 90 degrees with the floor. Okay, so your eye and your screen level needs to be 90 degrees with the floor. Then if you sit on your chair needs to be a chair that is adjustable. So what I mean with that is it needs to be able to lift your bum, lift your armrest, and actually adjust your back. Okay, so that's a good chair to sit on, especially if you edit for long periods of time. Then secondly, your bum needs to be back all the way to the back of the chair. So usually chairs that is adjustable, they have a lumbar support, which is very, very important if you're going to spend a lot of time sitting. So you move your bum all the way to the back of the chair, that your lower back has a little bit of a support. Then your hip angle needs to be 90 degrees or slightly bigger, okay? Not bigger than, I would say, 110 degrees, so between 90 and 110 degrees for your hips. If you put your arms down on your desk, one arm on the mouse, one on the keypad, or however the way you want to edit, your elbows needs to be a little bit bigger than 90 degrees, and your shoulders also needs to be 90 degrees vertical to the floor, okay? Looking at your knees, it should also be a 90-degree angle. So you shouldn't bend your legs in or actually straighten your legs out, because if you straighten your legs out, you get center of gravity pressure all the way down to your spine, affecting your sacroiliac joints. So make sure the weight of your legs is actually supported by your feet with a 90-degree angle of your knees.
Okay. So one of the things I did notice while you were speaking now is that I do this all the time. I think because of the 90-degree thing, I tend to, because my seat is too high,
you tuck in your legs.
Yes, I tuck in my legs behind into the chair, and I'm on my tippy toes.
Cut the legs of your desk to lower your desk, so you can lower your chair.
I don't know if it's the desk or the chair though. Maybe it's just that I need to go lower in the chair.
Yeah.
Or yes, I'm not actually sure.
Some desks might be too high, so you feel you want to lift your chair. Otherwise, the desk is like that.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe the desk is too high because it needs to be about 90 degrees.
Okay, so it needs to be 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing that I would like to mention is that some photographers work with tablets. They call them Wacom's.
Okay.
And it's instead of working with a mouse to edit, which you saw me doing in the video, they would sit back like this.
Yeah.
And then
work on their tablets.
And almost as if they're drawing something. So that would give you kind of an idea of how that feels. That's how I used to sit when I had a tablet.
Okay. So the same thing. So there's a new medical diagnosis called text neck. And I think we can apply this to photographers. So basically it's about your neck being flexed for long periods of time. What I explained when Liz was holding the camera, looking at the shooting posture, if that's what I can refer it to. Mm-hmm. If your neck is flexed or straightened, if I can just take away your hair, if your neck is flexed or straightened for long periods of time, because of the weight of your head, it puts way too much strain on what we refer to as the anterior discs. So if you look at the spine, your neck should have a normal curvature. So what happens now is that happens. You can only imagine that all the structures in the front of your spine gets compressed. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Makes sense.
The muscles in the front of your neck actually shorten. They can go into spasm or contraction, not necessarily causing you some pain, but then the muscles at the back stretches because you're in that position, and that's like a stretching position almost for those muscles. So if you edit on a tablet, also try and lift the tablet to eye level. So I know you can get tablet stands that you can obviously edit or
I don't know if
adjust.
Yes.
But I'd rather want you to have arm support if you do it, but also not put too much strain on the front part of your neck. Like you could see what I was trying to explain with this.
Okay. And posture is important. So it does actually, that you could be experiencing symptoms right now. I know a lot of people get pains in their wrists, they get pains in their shoulders, they get pains in their necks. And so there are symptoms that you are experiencing that's likely coming from your practice of photography, but there's also other possible conditions that might develop over the years, which she'll explain more in detail, and also how to treat it.
And some of the other symptoms photographers might experience is actually headaches. So I want to explain this to you as well. It's called a cervicogenic headache, which is basically a mechanical headache, not hormone or tension related, literally due to bad posture. Okay, so what happens, this is the base of your skull and obviously your first 7 neck vertebrae. So at the back of your first and second vertebra and the base of your skull, you've got a triangle of muscle. So it's 3 different muscles attaching to 3 different parts on those 3 different segments. Okay, if you have that tilted neck, you can actually see that the angle between the base of your skull and your first neck vertebra closes off completely. Okay, this should be normal neck posture with an open angle. If you draw your neck forward, that closes that angle. That's called an anterior head carriage. Okay, this is the biggest culprit in headaches that any mechanical dysfunctional person will experience. Okay, some of the other symptoms could be what I also mentioned earlier, is tension of the muscles in the front of the neck due to being in a shortened position over periods of time, and then stress or stretch on the posterior or the back muscles. So what then can happen is you get chronic tension in those muscles. You might actually experiencing burning sensation. Some people actually also start experiencing, if it's long term, a numb sensation on the skin due to compression of some of the nerves, and then also just due to chronic tension in those muscles. Some of the other symptoms you might experience is actually lower back pain. So having that, your lower back is also not supported sufficiently. So even if you sit or stand, you can experience lower back pain over long periods of time. And then what I've asked Liz is if some photographers might actually experience pins and needles in the arms. So if you shoot and you hold that camera for long periods of time, you can obviously have a decreased blood flow from your elbow into your forearm. So make sure that you kind of just like swap or rest your arm and just move it around a little bit, just to keep stimulating the blood flow in your forearm, and to make sure that so what if the blood is flowing, your muscles like blood flow. Muscles are happy when they get fed. Okay, I think that's what all of us, we're all happy if we get food. Okay, so Muscles tend to go into spasm or contracture if it's got a lack of minerals. So the minerals obviously is carried in the blood. So make sure that you move around, get the blood flowing in your muscles. So that would also obviously prevent something like stiffness or pain, or even like a joint injury, because joints also like to be open and not closed. So this would be a closed joint. So just make sure that you nourish your joint with the fluid in the joint, keep flowing just by regular movement.
Okay. So constant movement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the long-term effects, if you have this posture for quite a long period of time, let's say for instance 4 to 5 hours a day for 10 years, unfortunately you're going to have what we'll refer to as intervertebral disc degeneration. So because of the pressure on the front part of the vertebral discs, the discs might actually start narrowing. A lot of people have come into my practice complaining of disc space narrowing, and the surgeon said I must get a fusion, but I don't want surgery. So if you want to prevent yourself from getting surgery, rather correct your posture, because there's a reason why anatomy was designed that way, and that's obviously a normal and comfortable way for the anatomy to be in. As soon as you change that, you're going to need to have intervention. So I would actually suggest coming to the chiropractor regularly. We do check the spine, I would say every 3 to 4 months, just to make sure all your vertebral bodies are aligned and moving healthy. Because if there's a restriction in your vertebral body movement, there's going to be compensation above and below that restriction. Yeah, so restrictions happens due to picking up heavy stuff, unbalanced muscles, lack of movement, bad posture. So I do suggest you go to the chiro for regular maintenance, just to make sure your spine is moving well. Also, you'll have optimal muscle functioning if your spine is moving well, because if you can just look at the spine from the back, this one has a little bit of scoliosis already due to all my explanations. So if you have a little bit of a curvature in the spine, once again the muscles on the side of the curvature is going to be contracted, and the muscles on against the side of the curvature is going to be stretched. So to make sure that everything is well aligned and in its normal and anatomical position, your muscles will fire and be able to support your posture correctly.
Okay. So how often do you need to come and see a chiropractor then?
I do suggest every 3 to 4 months, but that's for people sitting a lot. For photographers, you guys are moving around well, but if you adjust your posture now, maybe once every 6 months. But if you're not going to adjust your posture, and you're going to have that weight of the camera, the weight of your head on your neck, rounded shoulders, if you're not going to adjust it, I would say more regular, about 3 to 4 months.
Explain a little bit about what you do. So when I come here, a part of what I come here for is obviously muscle pain, but she doesn't just relieve the muscle pain. So she will do some, I call it massaging. I don't know the professional word for it, but she will massage my muscles, and if there's great tension in it, she puts needles into my back. The reason I'm specifically asking, just so that people know what a chiropractor does and why she would be putting needles in my back. And also she does something called an alignment. Am I using the term correctly?
Let's use manipulation.
Manipulation. She does a manipulation. Now, if you were ever a kid, I remember we would do this as kids, where we'd like line our stomachs, and someone would come on your back and they'd go breathe in, breathe out, and someone would go on the sides of your spine, push down, and then there'll be like a click. It's almost like a knuckle click, similar to that, but in your back. So she does this professionally. What we were doing as kids was wrong from my understanding. Completely wrong. So I want her to explain why it's wrong and why she does those things when I come and see her.
Okay. So if there's a restriction in your spine, the joint on the side to where it lies to the front part is being compressed, and the one on the other side is being stretched. So around every single joint you have a little capsule, and that capsule obviously stretches or compresses depending on which way that bone moves. Inside the joint you also have a little fold, and without me going into too much anatomy, if that joint is like that for long periods of time, you're going to have early degeneration in your spine. That's the short of it, basically. So we use techniques to manipulate the joints back into its normal alignment, to make sure we stimulate movement, so that if every single movement that happens in this mechanical chain of 33 bones or joints, that all those movements happen in a normal anatomical alignment, and that all the joints are healthy, to basically prevent stuff like spinal fusions, disc replacements, laminectomies, fasciotomies, rhizotomies, any surgical
all
procedure
otomies,
like that.
basically. So, and you can now imagine that someone who isn't trained in manipulating those joints can actually cause further injury. So that is why you'd rather go to a chiropractor than let just someone general manipulate your spine or your back. Okay, and the needle part. Why the needle part?
Okay, so just to briefly explain this, and this is based on new research, so a lot of medical professionals might actually disagree with me on this topic, but new research has shown that if muscles contract or go into spasm, form trigger points or knots, what you guys might be more familiar with. So if a muscle contracts, you basically have filaments running like that, and if a muscle contracts, that's what's happening. So the filaments kind of roll into each other. So that contraction only happens if calcium binds to troponin. Okay. If calcium binds, it causes the filament to contract, and then the contraction happens. If there's too much calcium coming into the muscle goes like that. And then it basically stays like that. Okay. So the way you break down that calcium bonds is by flushing in oxygen and magnesium. That is with blood flow. So basically what the needle does, it causes a micro damage or tear in the muscle, stimulates that blood flow so that the blood that comes in brings in oxygen and magnesium, breaks down that calcium bonds to release all those filaments so that the muscle can actually return to its normal position.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Then why not go to acupuncturist for that?
So quickly, the difference between acupuncture and dry needling. So we practice dry needling as medical professionals, and acupuncturists are more practiced by alternative medicine, if I can refer to it as that.
Okay.
So the old Chinese used to believe that your body needs to be balanced by the yin and the yang, which basically means it's a good and the bad. So the Chinese have meridians all over your body, and the certain meridian points in your body stimulate certain, I want to say, organs or diseases or whatever. Whereas that's more a meridian-based homeostatic form of treatment or therapy. Whereas dry needling is literally going into the muscle, causing blood flow, helping that muscle to relax.
And then one last thing, what is the difference between a physio, a biokineticist, and a chiropractor? I think a lot of people, general people, are confused, and they don't know when to see a physio, when to go to a biokineticist, and when to go to a chiropractor.
So between the three professions, chiro, bio, and physio, there's an overlap. So when it comes to physio and biokinetics, what separates them is that biokineticists specialize in rehabilitation. Okay, so they basically do what I can just refer to as a chiropractor phase 1 to, let's say, phase 4 rehabilitation. Basically, all I'm trying to say is they'll identify weakness, imbalance, and decreased flexibility in the body on a physical aspect, literally a physical aspect, what movements you are able to do, not able to do. They'll identify muscle weakness and give you exercises according to a specific muscle weakness. So what biokineticists then do is they start from a phase 1, let's say muscle weakness. Let's just use that as an example. And they'll give you exercises according to how strong that muscle is. If that muscle gets stronger, they'll add more difficulty to that certain exercise to obviously help strengthen the muscle more. Okay, so that's the speciality of biokineticists.
So that would likely be for patients who suffer from like an injury.
Strokes, Parkinson's, a lot of those patients, and then also athletes. So let's say, for instance, you injured your ankle. Obviously, it maybe have been in a moon boot for 6 weeks. Those muscles weaken. You go to the biokineticist. They give you exercise to strengthen those muscles.
Strengthen it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a big difference. So some people might need to go to a chiropractor and to a biokineticist to treat a specific not symptom, but a specific illness or syndrome. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When it comes to physiotherapists, their speciality is muscles. So anything related to muscles, let's say whether it's massage, applying interferential currents, ultrasound, and they can also do dry needling if they did the external course. And then physiotherapists are also trained in hospital with pulmonary or lung diseases. So they can do lung percussion, suction, and everything like that. Okay, so that's where I feel physiotherapists have their field of speciality. When it comes to chiropractors, our field of specialty is the manipulation. So the overlap between physio and chiro is that we both do soft tissue treatment. I think chiro is to a less extent, okay? Because we want to focus more on joint function and mobility. Okay. So we
Makes a
do
lot of
manipulation
sense.
to restore joint movement, to make sure your joints are aligned, to make sure that if your body is balanced, that every single joint in that kinematic chain is functioning well.
Yes.
So the reason we do soft tissue is to basically release muscle. So if the muscle has been tense for quite a while, obviously there's going to be a pull on the joint because it crosses the bone and that's how it forms a joint. So we release the soft tissue to make sure that if we do the manipulation or that adjustment on the joints, that the joints will actually stay that way instead of the muscle pulling it again. Okay.
Makes a lot of sense. So in my head, the way I see it is almost as if you deal predominantly with joints and the symptoms and syndromes that come with joints, and then also there's the muscular aspect of it coming in to make sure that those joints stay in place and don't get further malaligned, so that muscle actually assists in that healing process.
Yes.
Whereas a physio might look specifically at the muscles and relieve tension in the muscles only, but they don't necessarily work on they don't work on the joints and the bones and that type of thing. And then a biokineticist is someone who you can almost see as someone who's your gym partner if you need healing within your
form of exercise.
There you go. So that's how I would explain the differences in short. So I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to you. Thank you, Desiree.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Desiree. I really appreciate your time. And I do think these are things that are important because they can have long-term effects. And in short, if you do want to support Dr. Desiree, she's in Linden. She's phenomenal at what she does. She has a practice in Linden. I'll put the link in the description below to her website. And so if you do want to see a chiropractor and you are in the area, phone her up, or if you want to find out who else she can refer you to, I'm sure she would also be willing to help with that.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So thank you very much for joining us today. Go follow the social media links in the description below. I'll also put her social media links in. She does these Monday, what do you call it?
Hashtag Manipulation Monday.
There you go. Hashtag Manipulation Monday videos that are quite cool and quite educational so that you can understand more of what she does. And so yes, all of that will be done. Remember to evoke and inspire. This is what we do. Business of photography. Your body is your business.